Hi, this is Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the Future of Education. It's Thursday, February 2nd, 2012, and this is a really fun show. It is on personal learning plans or profiles or any of a number of different ways of describing something that became very interesting to me a couple of months ago, and I reached out, and this is a group effort to teach us about personalized learning in these plans and to get some wisdom from our four ladies. Barbara Bray, Kathleen McClaskey, Shannon Miller, and Lisa Nielsen. Welcome to all of you. Don't all speak at once.
Thanks so much for having us. I'm really excited to be talking to everyone today. This is Lisa.
Hi, this is Barbara. Thank you for inviting me also. I feel very honored to be part of this panel.
And Kathleen, we know you're there because you've tested your mic. But I'm seeing a slowdown in her audio, so maybe she'll come back.
Yes, I'm still here, and can you? Oh, okay. So maybe
we
you
are
can't
hearing
hear
you now.
All right. So yeah, my screen went blank for a moment there, but I really appreciate being able to participate today on a subject that I think is really the key element in our transformation of education today.
Oh, good. Kathleen, glad to have you here. And it looks like Shannon is here. And let me give Shannon privileges. And Shannon, if you're familiar with the environment, you can, I think you're on.
I think I'm on. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And like everyone else said, I'm very passionate about this topic, so I look forward to the conversation tonight.
Oh, I'm glad. We do need that passion. So thank you each for turning your mics off when you're not talking. That'll help us with this group of four, and especially as we go into the Q&A. The Future of Education is sponsored by my Web 2.0 Labs project at web20labs.com and by Blackboard Collaborate. They provide this lovely room, and we're grateful for it. If you're going to either the Q or the ISTE shows, the EdTech shows this spring and summer, please look at ISTE Unplugged or Q Unplugged. Q is actually in March. That's in Palm Springs, and the show organizers have really given us some latitude here. We've always sort of struggled because we've had an educational blogger meet up the day before the conference, and a lot of people, it's because it's in the middle of the week, a lot of people can't come. So now we are doing EduBloggerCon all day Thursday, which is the first day of the conference. So those of you who are going to Q can pick and choose. You can come into EduBloggerCon sessions, or well, now called Social EdCon sessions, or you can go to regular sessions. Then Friday we're doing the live streaming. Anybody can sign up to present, which we're calling Q Unplugged. And then the Bloggers Cafe will be in that same area all 3 days of the conference. So this is really nice. We have our own big room. Really a lot of fun. If you like Q, you'll love this. ISTE, of course, the mothership. It's so much fun. This is our 5th anniversary for both shows. We're going to have a birthday cake on Saturday. We are renaming EduBloggerCon to Social EdCon. All of the events around ISTE are free, so please do come. And if you're making your plans to go to ISTE, do know that EduBloggerCon, now Social EdCon, is the Saturday before. So if you want to attend, you do need to make arrangements to be there a day or two early, depending on otherwise when you would come. But it is a blast, and we've typically had 100 to 250 people, and it's always really a lot of fun. And we will have birthday cake. Because it's this sort of 5th year, we're also celebrating a 5th year anniversary of Classroom 2.0. Started 2 projects that are really a lot of fun. One is Ed Incubator, helping organizations get authentic teacher councils using the great audience at Classroom 2.0. PBS NewsHour is our first project. They need help with some journalism projects. You can go to classroom20.com, click on Ed Incubator, and then click on PBS NewsHour. We're also doing a crowdsourced book program. So we are hoping to release a treasury of great practices around using the web and social media in the classroom, and we really want everybody to contribute. Every submission will get published online. We're going to put them all up. We're going to select some number of them to go in an actual physical book. But we do really encourage anybody who has a desire to write, or if you've already written and you want to repurpose, we're glad to take that as well. Should be a lot of fun. We're really excited about it. Coming up on our worldwide conferences this year, we are going to do a Classroom 2.0 conference. It's not clear when we're going to do that, but we will do something. We'll have a 12-hour gaming and education conference on April 26th, which should be terrific. Alt-EdCon, the Alternative Education Conference, May 10th through the 12th, homeschooling, unschooling, virtual schooling, and we're going to explore it all in another sort of worldwide I'm forgetting the word, but it is a worldwide free event, highly inclusive. We really want people to present and feel comfortable that they have something to contribute. Our Future of Libraries Conference in the second year, sponsored by San Jose State University, will be October 3rd to the 5th, and the Global Education Conference, November 12th to 16th. Coming up, you know it's Personal Learning Profiles tonight. Next week on Tuesday, Lorette Lynn, the Unplugged Mom, comes to visit. Talk to us about homeschooling and unschooling. Alan Blankstein on improving individual schools. You've seen this list before. If you haven't, David Weinberger's kind of fun. Mimi Ito. They're all going to be fun. Kathy Davidson on her book coming up. New on this list tonight, John Hunter and Chris Farina, the teacher and the movie producer, talk about John's project, World Peace, and other fourth grade achievements are going to come on April 18th. And then Julie Lindsay and Vicki Davis on their new book on April 19th. If you've missed any of our sessions, they are all recorded in full Illuminate version and MP3. Cable Green was on last night talking about the obviousness of open policy. Wow, was that fun. In fact, I've seen his presentation a couple of times now. He allowed us to let him do his presentation, but let me interrupt with questions. So if you've seen that presentation before and you want a version where there's a little bit of pushback, it is up and online at this point at futureofeducation.com. David Lurcher talked about learning commons and personal learning environments. We're actually going to bring that up tonight. Lee Crockett on 21st Century Fluencies. Again, lots more all up, available for you to pick and choose. So this is now your chance to indicate where you're participating from. To the left of the whiteboard are some icons. You're looking for the star, the second one down. Click on that and then click on the map. And feel free to shout out in the chat as well. I do know we have Kevin from Tokyo in the group. Looks like someone from New Zealand. Lots of North America. I'm in Park City, Utah this year, and we're thankfully getting some snow. The ski resorts don't do well when there isn't snow. Australia, Japan, Vermont, Connecticut, what a lot of fun. As always, wherever you're participating from, we sure appreciate your being here. Really glad to have you. Okay, so I opened up a little bit of a can of worms with this topic. The Future of Education show tends to be something of a personal indulgence. Karen Cater called it a boutique interview series. The reason it's an indulgence is I get to pursue topics that are of personal interest to me. And the topic that was of real interest to me was this question about how do we start thinking about individually tracking what we want to learn about and how we learn well as we move into a learner-centered environment. And what I didn't realize was that this topic really can't be talked about without talking about personalized or individual learning. So we're going to start there. What I'm going to ask the panelists to each do is to give a one-line introduction to yourself and then give a one-sentence description in your mind of what a personal learning plan or profile is. And use the language that you like to use because we'll springboard from there. So let's start with Barbara. Barbara, if you would.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm what you call a digital pioneer. My motto was making learning personal 20 years ago, so I've always thought about personalizing learning. The idea of a student learning plan, it's different to me than an IEP. It's based around the learner. It's how the learner learns best, and they design their own personal learning path. And I think I'm going to stop there because I want to go into that later. Is that okay, Steve?
That was perfect, and you used a lot of good commas and kept it in one sentence. Kathleen?
Well, personalized learning to me is where the learner, and Barbara and I, by the way, have had a lot of discussions and a lot of research around this. But what I see is that there's the ownership to learning. That we're really empowering the learner in understanding how they learn best, and then giving them an understanding about what their aspirations are, and helping them design their curriculum and their learning path as they go forward into school. So it's really about student empowerment.
Thank you. Shannon?
Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
I would say that I see students, just as Kathleen just said, being empowered. That's very important to me with my students. And at Van Meter, our motto behind what we want our students to embrace their own education is to follow their passions and really develop their own voice as they learn to think, lead, and serve as individuals, not just now as students, but also as they become adults.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa Nielsen. I'm the author of the Innovative Educator blog and the recently released book, Teaching Generation Text. And I called what we're talking about personal success plans, and what they mean to me are tools that empower students with the freedom to learn in a way that is customized to the individual rather than standardized to the system.
So I'm going to embarrass myself here because it's so interesting. As much as I agree with everything that's said, when I first thought of personal learning plans, I had a vision of younger students and an ability to track what they responded to and what their interests were that would get passed from adult to adult as the youth progressed through school. Clearly, I was sort of missing the boat here, that this is really a springboard for thinking about education as personalized. I'm going to ask some questions, and what I thought I would do is I'll ask the question to one of you specifically by name. Then if the second one of you would like to respond to that same question, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll probably stop there. If another one of you would like to say something, feel free to put something in the chat or indicate that you just are dying to make a comment. But I know we have a lot to get through, and I want to make sure that we give each of you a chance to talk. So there are a variety of terms being used, and I'm wondering, Tuesday night David Lurcher came on and he talked about the learning commons and personal learning environments. And his personal learning environment included a portal, a PLN, or a personal learning network, and a portfolio. You know, interestingly, after reading a lot of the material to prepare for today, it feels like a couple of things are missing. But my question to you, Barbara, would be, how important are the words here? Are we talking about all the same things, or do we need to be really trying to land on a set of phrases that are common, that communicate something very clearly?
Well, that's pretty interesting. Kathleen and I worked on defining the difference between personalized learning and differentiated instruction and individualization. What we found is that they're getting confused. So you have that chart. What we found is that people are confusing these a lot, and so for individualization, it's more you're designing the instruction for that student, and you can work one-on-one. For differentiation, the teacher, you're designing the instruction to meet different groups of children. or students and learners. It depends on the, what age. But personalization is driven by the learner, and that's where they help design their curriculum and the goals. Can I just have Kathleen jump in on this one also, Steve?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here. Barbara was saying there's a lot of confusion around these three terms, and there really is. And we've really looked at some really good examples, both around the world and actually in the United States, around personalized learning. And I noticed that there happens to be someone here from Vancouver, Canada, from British Columbia, who's really looking at personalized learning as adopted by the entire province, and they're working right through a process. But just want to say that everyone, when you're trying to do something like that, you're really bringing in all the voices from the community. The students have an equal voice to teachers, to administrators, and parents are extremely important in this whole role of personalized learning. I don't know everything, but I've really have studied a lot of this now and seeing a real pattern about what that really includes. And community is extremely important to really create a really vibrant, personalized learning environment in schools.
So I guess I want to still get an answer to the question, which for me is, if the language is important, when we're talking about a personal learning plan or a personal learning profile or a success plan, what is there language that the two of you prefer?
I'd like to jump in. I was just going to write. It's not a personal learning plan. It's more like a personal learning path. It's because it's a journey they're going on, and their goals change and it's all based on how they learn best. So I don't know if that makes more sense, Steve. Let me just instead of a plan, because you can't really design a plan because we don't know where the student's going to go. And like Lisa was saying about their passion, if they're driven by their passion and their interest, they're going on this journey and they're going along and finding how, the way they learn best, and then the teacher is the guide working with them. So they're more like a co-learner and co-designer of their learning. I don't know if that helps.
It does. It helps me quite a bit. Now, I'm interested to know if either Shannon or Lisa have a different take on this.
I don't know if I have this is Lisa, sorry. I don't know if I have a different take. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I like to call it a personal success plan just because for me, plans can always be updated and changed. Well, I guess I'm going in a different direction there. So I guess what I want to say is I agree with everything they said. I do think language is important. I do think we want to kind of standardize on what we end up calling these. But I like success more than the word learning just because it's not all about what we quote-unquote think of as traditional learning, even though you can think learning is a part of everything. But there is learning in so many things, and there are areas that might fit outside of the term learning that also equate to success as far as pursuing and exploring and developing our passions. And I'll turn it over to Shannon if she has anything to add to that or say differently.
This is Shannon. Yeah, I really like what Lisa just said because I think that, like she said, like success is kind of what I said when I said my first sentence, isn't just about everything maybe that we learn that is new and different. It's also, about leading them to their path, and that's what Barbara and Kathleen, I love that you use the word path because I think that it is ever-changing and we need to, especially now, the way that the kids learn and the way that the teachers are learning and teaching, that it changes all the time, so it needs to be evolving.
So Kathleen, I can imagine personalized learning without a plan, an individual plan, although it's not easy. I can also imagine a personal learning plan or path without personalized learning. How much do the two need to go together, and when can they operate, or can they operate separately ever?
That's a tall question, and a really broad question. I'm thinking that personal learning, here's my perspective, is that both the teacher and the learner really need, the teacher needs to understand the individual learner before any of this can really happen really well. And I can give you an example, and I actually just made a little note down there about a teacher out in the UK just recently, and because I'm not in the classroom to say that, right or wrong, this teacher is doing, but I think he's really on a really good journey now, that he decided that he was going to allow kids to have their own personal journey every week. And this is in an elementary classroom in the UK. And each kid set themselves some goals in which they had to reflect every week, and if they achieved those goals. But they set those goals at the beginning of the week. And he, of course, also set some very specific goals, of course, because he has to live by some, sort of standards. But these children really had set those goals and worked on their own personal goals every week. So that's just one example. And of course, if you look at other examples, like in, say, in Finland, where really in the secondary level, kids are really working towards their aspirations, towards what they want to be, and they're really designing their own coursework and selecting coursework that's really going to get them to the post-secondary. But the motivation, so here's the real key, is that when this actually does happen, there's a greater motivation in the classroom, and I think all of that is a really good thing, because I think this is one of the things that we don't talk about in education, is the lack of motivation at the high school level. And in personal, having personalized learning in schools would be really probably the key in really transforming unmotivated children to maybe more motivated children.
So I want to, a little bit later in the show, I want to talk about how change actually takes place and how we would move, how this concept might move us toward a larger narrative change about education. But before we do so, Barbara, are there certain practices that really work well with personal learning, both in the path plan and the environment? I looked through all the material today, and I didn't see any mention of advisories, but it really felt to me like the advisory period would play very well with this whole concept. And Barbara, your mic may be off, or you didn't realize I directed that to you.
I got it. I couldn't get it to work. All of a sudden it froze. I think it depends. Like I'm working right now with an elementary school. I've worked with some middle schools, and in high school I see the of course, students can work independently and collaborate on their own, outside of school. And but like I said, I'm working in an elementary school right now, and one of the things that we're looking at is how to redesign the classroom so it's more of a personal learning environment. And it's what I'm finding is the problem is not the environment; it's more the we're kind of caught in a system that we've had for hundreds of years, and teachers are taught, how to teach a certain way, and then to come in and tell them to let go, change the environment, let students make their choice, and it's like some of the teachers are kicking and screaming to go along. So I think it takes time, and any kind of change. Some of the teachers I'm working with, we almost have to teach them how to let go and let the students have a voice. So we're slowly starting to do that. I want to give some other people a chance to talk, but I just wanted to say that it doesn't happen right away in most places.
Go ahead, Shannon. And Lisa, I'm going to ask you a question, so I think you can save your fire, and I'll give you a chance.
We both want to talk, right, Lisa? So being in a school, I'm in Van Meter, Iowa, and we went through a big transformation the last 3 years. We put laptops into the hands of our kids 6-12, and our little ones in the elementary and K-5 have technology, almost one device per student, iPads, iTouches, laptops. We have a computer lab, and this has just been a vehicle for really changing things and becoming a really innovative environment. And it's not just our older kids that we want to, help these kids find their passions, but it's our little ones too. And like you just said, Barbara, it's like helping the teachers and teaching them to let go and teaching them that they need to step aside and let our kids be also the teachers. It was a difficult transition, but this is the 3rd year, and it's really going great, and there's changes all the time, and there are bumps, and sometimes, you have to really involve the community too and educate everybody and really be transparent about such a change so everybody can be on the same page and let this take place, because it is a shift in the way that we've always done things.
So again, at the risk of embarrassing myself, Lisa, when I thought about this, I was specifically thinking more about me as a parent and wanting to track my own children from year to year and to be able to present to a teacher kind of a better understanding of my child as a student. I'm loving that I have gone through the growth process here, something that should have been obvious to me at the beginning that wasn't. But you often blog about sort of the difficulty of being in a school environment that doesn't change. Is there a degree to which this could be parent-driven, and does that make any sense in terms of thinking about it as a change process?
I think parents are really the key to success and change, and we have someone who joined us today, Lizette Casey, who knows that I'm extremely involved with parents and unschooling and homeschooling and do-it-yourself education, yet I don't have my own children to do that with. And the reason I'm so involved with that, and some parents are a little confused as to why I would be doing that as an educator and the fact that I'm not a parent, is because I think this is the key to education reform, learning reform, and all of the things that we want to have success with really reside with the parents. And what I want to help empower parents to do is know that they have power, because so often they have been bullied, bashed, and berated by the system and the politicians and all sorts of people telling them that if they advocate for things like personal success for their child, that the school will lose funding, and they're hurting everyone by doing this. And it's really not the case. I mean, it is the case if one parent does it. But if parents stand up and demand that their children are treated as individuals, then there's not going to be anywhere for the system to turn. And I have worked hard at starting groups throughout the United States to help empower parents, and parents are absolutely the key to this, and parents absolutely should be demanding that their children are treated as individuals and that learning is customized to each child and not standardized to the system. So yes, I 100% think that the future of ed reform and transformation lies with our parents.
So I want to give the chance for a rebuttal to that. I'm not assuming that Barbara or Kathleen would disagree with that, but Barbara and Kathleen, I'm curious to know, have you seen a good progression of understanding of personalized learning that you feel can get the kind of mass adoption that you would need for a larger change in our culture of education?
I'm jumping in, Kathleen. I've worked with schools around the country, and I've worked with public and private. I've worked in places where parents are very involved with a school site council, they're on the board, they're very active in moving things along. But I've also seen parents that say that it was good for me, then it's good for my kids. And they kind of keep the process from going. I've worked in one district where they've stopped the whole process on personalized learning because they want to get their kids into Yale or Harvard or something. So I think it's about education. It's about starting right in the beginning of the year, have everyone involved and have the whole school community there and talk about developing a shared vision of personalized learning so they understand what it means. I think there's a little bit of fear. So I'm going to stop, but I do see that it can be dangerous too if we don't really explain what it means. Because sometimes we throw it at them, we have the students doing it. Well, let me just say one more thing. One of the things that I found with the school that we're working with right now, that I'm working with right now, is that the parents are very much involved, but they don't know what personalized learning is. And we just had a showcase, and the students were explaining it. And the parents are getting more excited and motivated about this process and want to be more involved because they're seeing the difference in the way the students are taking responsibility for their own learning.
Kathleen, did you want to respond in any way?
Sure, and I'd like to get back to, I haven't had the same experiences as Barbara, but I'm right now involved in a one-to-one iPad environment and in a charter school where I'm on the board and done a lot of training there and trying to get to a personalized learning. Again, I always like to get back to the fact that it really takes the teacher to really understand who the learners are in their classroom to make all of that really work. And then, of course, informing the parents and getting the parents involved. I always like to refer back to British Columbia is really a province we should look very closely at because they have a plan online. It's a multi-year plan to transform their educational system into a personalized learning system. And they've spent the last 2 years with the big thought leaders around personalized learning, but they have a wonderful interactive guide that really helps you understand personalized learning. They made that totally available. They've got input from both parents and teachers and students have a very big voice in all of this, and administrators. But one of the things I also noticed, and I often share with Barbara, is that there's such leadership in that province around personalized learning. There's major bloggers who are superintendents and principals, and I've been communicating with some of them and watching their blogs as well. So that's a model that I think that if any state decides we want to move in that direction, they could. I do want to say that in Wisconsin, CISA 1 is actually moving to a personalized learning environment. I think that is one of the largest scaled models in the U.S., and they're currently in the midst of all of that. So we have to watch what happens in these models, personalized learning models they're trying to scale. And it'll be an interesting thing to watch over the next couple of years.
Okay, so there's some good questions in the chat, and Larry's asked a couple of them that I want us to get to with regard to measuring and success. But before we get there, Kathleen, I think in something you sent me prior to the interview, you talked about what is personalized learning and what isn't personalized learning. So would you start us on a little bit of a conversation about maybe sort of the history of personalized learning and IEPs, and when you say personalized learning, what do you mean and what do you not mean?
Well, personalized learning is definitely not individual education plans, and by the way, that's the biggest fear by superintendents here in the United States. Individual education plans are really based upon a individual evaluation and educational evaluation along with several other types of evaluation for a very specific child. And there are very specific goals and objectives for that individual child. So personalized learning is not an IEP, for sure.
Okay, so from anybody else, just raise your hand. Do you have a definition you'd want to give of what individual learning is and what it is not? So Craig actually raised his hand in the chat room. Craig, I'm going to give you the mic, and go ahead and grab it. Just click on the talk button at the top left.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little muffled, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering how you can balance the extrinsic motivation, that is like curriculum, against the internal motivation, that is the value of the learner, what they want to learn.
Okay, so Craig is asking about how you balance the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and let's go there. Let's talk about specifically who are these plans for, and how should we be measuring their effectiveness? Would anybody like to grab that question? Go ahead, Lisa.
I think that when all is said and done, the plans are for the student, the actual person. And we measure what I call personal success plan. It's not a theoretical term. There is really something that exists called personal success plans. It's something that I worked with Joe Renzulli and Sally Reese, who are the creators of the school-wide enrichment model. And students, with their families, with their advisory, with their teachers, really think deeply about what their passions, talents, interests, learning styles, and abilities are. And they come up with an actual plan that has measurable goals. And the students can see with their family, with their teachers. And I also think this is a fabulous tool for student evaluation and for teacher evaluation and for school evaluation. And the other important part, which you mentioned earlier, is this is not something that exists inside of a walled garden or isolated system. It's something that becomes a part of that student's academic and or career portfolio. It's something that's real and meaningful in the world, and it's something that the student, their parents, the teacher, and the school can be really, really proud of, unlike a lot of what happens in school today.
Shannon, what's the role of the librarian in this process?
Well, I think that my role at school has changed a lot, even in the last year. I've always been, the technology, I say, integrationist or specialist at my school. But now I'm becoming, we have a collaborative document that, at the beginning of the year, we rolled it out, and the teachers, they have to connect with me and collaborate, and I'm kind of like their teaching partner or coach, if you would say, on a lot of things, because I help them not just integrate, the technology, but help them individualize instruction for the kids, help them find maybe what the kids' interests are, tools that will help the kids get there, and, help the teachers maybe understand some of the things that they quite don't, maybe aren't an expert in, that I have the time and the resources and the connections to bring that to the kids.
Barbara, did you want to respond?
I just wanted to thank Shannon, because I feel librarians are such a wonderful resource, and in California we're losing a lot of our librarians. They're cutting out the programs, and I follow Joyce Valenza, and now I know you, and I'm learning about what's from David Leuscher and a lot of other librarians around the country and the world. It's such a valuable resource to help now, especially when so many resources are available online, and we need you. And especially if students are learners are going to be designing their whatever you want to call it. It could be a student success plan, it could be a learning path, it could be whatever. They still need a guide on the side, and a lot of times the teachers need a guide, and I feel that's what the librarian is, a coach and a guide for them.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you, Barbara. That was very nice of you to say, and that's what I think. I mean, I think about even just, one part of what I do is, getting the kids connected through social networks, and, I might have a kid that comes to me that wants to start a Twitter because she's interested in photography and she wants to do this great project maybe on her genealogy for social studies. And I can work with her and, develop that and get her connected through, my network and bring so many tools to them. And that's what I teach all, half of the day I teach elementary kids and I teach technology literacy to our 6th graders. But the other part is just being there for our kids, being, a person that they can come to really build their, personal learning path or whatever we want to call it, to make them more successful. And like I said, a big thing at our school, and all the kids know this, is to really follow what they're passionate about.
Kathleen, how does this integrate with our existing assessment systems for determining student success? And does it improve, change, help, compete with traditional assessment? And Kathleen, I'm not sure if you didn't turn your mic on. I didn't know I was addressing that to you, but if you're comfortable answering it, I was addressing it to you.
Could you give me a repeat on that? I needed to call my husband right away, so.
Oh, in fact, Lisa, I think you heard the question, so let's have a response from you, and then we'll pass the baton over to Kathleen.
Okay, so it's slightly answering a little bit of a different question because it was going to be after Kathleen spoke. But what I want to say is that personal success plans, learning plans, whatever paths, journeys, whatever we want to call them, can absolutely replace the current assessment system that we have in place. Ideally, a student would never, ever, ever have to take a test again unless they chose to do that. Ideally, if we use this, which we absolutely can do today, we would save billions of dollars in resources that can go directly to students instead of publishing and test-taking companies. Personal success plans are not difficult to create. They are not difficult to measure. It takes the power out of the testing companies and publishing companies and puts it in the hands that they belong, which is with the teachers, students, and families. So there really is no reason not to do that other than the political agendas of different people, as well as the pocketbooks of testing and publishing companies. But this is absolutely what's best for kids. It really will help them succeed. And it's really a movement that I'd like to help start, because this is best for kids. It empowers teachers. It empowers family. And we will save billions of dollars that can go to resources to students if we start implementing things like this instead of our standardized tests. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Lisa, for the soapbox. So, Kathleen, do you think that Lisa's being realistic? And are you seeing that the assessments that come out of the personalized learning displace traditional assessments, or do they have to work alongside them?
Well, let's take a look at, at Finland, who's doing something very similar as Lisa describes. And what's different in Finland is they don't do any standardized testing. They assess in the classroom. But the other element that we're not talking about is really the caliber of teachers in the classroom who do all of this. So that's really very important to all of this. But I do think that I think we could abandon testing, standardized testing, and really stick to some very strong standards and really, assess kids in formative assessment on a regular basis and really train teachers in those areas instead of kill and drill and taking kids into testing that kills virtually weeks and weeks of time in the classroom and also in instruction. So let's take a close look at why Finland is so successful in what they do, and why they've gone from a dropout rate of 25% to 2% in 3 decades, and with no standardized testing.
Okay, so the Finland show is coming up. We did have one already with the guy who made the film. I'm Finland phenomenon, and I think Pasi Solberg's going to come on the show. In fact, he's committed. We just don't have a date yet, but we're going to have a lot of fun with Finland. In the meantime, Barbara, how do personal learning plans relate to portfolios? David Lurcher on the show on Tuesday said that the portfolio is really a critical part of the student's personal learning environment, and because it's student-driven, it should not be an externally mandated portfolio system, but we should be teaching them to use the tools of the web to build their portfolio. How would you respond to that? And Barbara, I don't know if we lost you, or maybe your mic's not on again.
There you go. It freezes for a second. I don't know why. I did some work with Reggio Emilia schools, which are preschools, and the students were creating their own portfolio, and they were 3- and 4-year-olds, and it was amazing. And I was watching the teachers and the parents were more of what they call the environment the third educator on top of the teachers and the parents, and they're guiding the preschooler. Now, if this can happen with 3- and 4-year-olds, where they're collecting evidence, and then the parents at that age and the teachers are collecting the evidence and putting it in a portfolio form, this can happen at any grade and any level. And it's amazing when they drive their learning and they're showing you evidence that what they can do, and then when they reflect on it. So I'm seeing more and more of this, and helping schools design this, and it's just amazing to watch what they can do. So I feel that, yes, portfolios, I agree with David Leuchter on this. It's more authentic, and they can use any of the tools that are out there to demonstrate, especially even like if they're learning a new language. I mean, anything. It's just amazing.
Okay, we're at the moment in the show when we switch the Q&A, but I don't want us to go there until I've asked my personal big interest question, which is, if we think of teachers as lead learners, and we're asking them to do this for their students, who's doing a good job of helping teachers be learners in the same way and building their own learning plans? Is that happening somewhere we can point to and say that this is an important part of the process? Oh, sorry, I didn't indicate who I was asking the question of. Barbara, go ahead.
I didn't know if you wanted me to answer, because this is what I do, is write about professional development. I feel that the teacher is the most important person in that class and with the students, and the problem is right now they're the hardest working person in the class, and they need to let go, and they don't know how to do it. So one of the things that I found that's really important is to work as a coach, just like Shannon was saying, is if you can support them and help them collect their own evidence on how they're becoming a better teacher or guide, and a co-learner and a co-designer, this will happen even faster. It's just right now they're alone in the classroom and they don't know how to do it. So yes, it's very important to help them design their plan or their path, their learning path also.
Shannon, did you want to add to that?
Say that, like, what we're doing at Van Meter is, this is our second year of having PLCs, where we have a small, cohort of teachers that we meet with every week. I met with them today at 7 o'clock for an hour and a half, and we have really added to our professional development. I mean, we have added, I think that it's up to like maybe 8 days of professional development that we have added to our schedule, and we're the teachers. We're not just sitting there and getting information from our director of teaching and learning or from people who might come in and speak. We are also there to collaborate, and we're the students. We gave them, our teachers this year, we showed them the curriculum and gave them a survey on what they knew about digital citizenship. We gave them only up to 6th grade. They don't know what they don't know sometimes. And so it's our responsibility, I think, to also teach them so they can become better at these things that we want our students to do, or what we want to be successful with them.
Okay, so thank you for that. We are now going to take the last 10 minutes for Q&A. The chat has gone by very quickly, and I'm afraid I have not caught any questions. So if you asked a question that you would like to have answered, please repeat it in the chat or draw my attention to it in some way. You can also raise your hand. In the participant box, you'll see some icons. The third one over is the raise hand icon. You can raise your hand and we'll give you the mic. Yaakov Heck, I think, is going to come on to talk about democratic schooling in Israel. That's my big hope. If anybody has some good connections at big picture schools or big picture learning, a couple of interviews have fallen through with them, and Dennis, I think it's Dennis Litke was going to come on the show and then had a conflict, I can't remember the first name, Walk. He's just written a new book, and I'm very anxious to have somebody on the show. So if anybody has connection for the big picture learning, please reach out to me. I'd love to get them on the show. Okay. Feel free to raise your hand or to put a note in the chat. And let me see, I'm trying to keep up here. Ronald Walk, that's correct. Okay, so while we're waiting for a question to come in, we've seen some names of schools that, like Big Picture here, and others that you feel are doing a good job. Reggio Emilia, are the Expeditionary Learning. Are there other places, I think particularly Barbara and Kathleen, where you would want to point to as really being successful in this regard?
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second. This is Lisa. I collected a whole bunch of those sort of schools. So we've named a couple of them, like Big Picture, Reggio Emilia. There's also Nuestra Escuela, and models like the school-wide enrichment model. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat a link to my collections of the schools that honor personalized learning and passion-led learning.
Terrific. Okay, we do have a question from the chat. Larry wants to know, what do you do to guarantee high-quality teachers who can handle how we want them to teach? Would anybody like to grab that one?
I'll grab it. Sorry, I just talked, but just real quickly, what I love about democratic/free schools is that students are completely involved in the hiring process. This also happens at some of the great progressive schools like Science Leadership Academy, and I think that if we trust the students and bring them into the process and the interview process and help ensure that the teachers are helping students meet their learning goals, that's one of the things that we can do to recruit high-quality teachers. And another thing we can do is, and I just read a couple of books on this topic too, but the traditional certification is not always the best teacher for the classroom. If you can get a real doctor to teach a class, or people who are actually in the profession, and let the kids interview that person and hire them and see how they do, that's another alternative way to get some really great people into the schools. And you can also get people who volunteer, which free/democratic schools do all the time. That's a couple ideas I have.
Go ahead, Barbara.
One of the things that Kathleen and I are writing a book on personalized learning, so we've been doing a lot of research on some of the schools. So probably we'll be talking to you, Lisa, and probably interviewing you also. One of the things that Finland did is that when they looked at their model in the 80s, they said they needed to change it because it was kind of where we are right now, and they needed to move to really make it where it was personalized. But what they needed to do is they needed to change the teaching that was happening. So what they did is they made it so that all of their teachers now have master's programs, and they get the teaching program is free, but the people that apply, they are very particular on who they allow in and into the schools, but the schools they're there for 2 years, and then they are part of a laboratory, and they are given a mentor. And if they're a K-6 teacher, that teacher stays with the same children for 6 years. So there's real looping, and the teacher is learning, the teacher's getting support from a mentor, the teacher has a lot of collaborative time. So we have to maybe look at the way we're teaching our teachers right now, and also the type of support they're getting. I've worked in schools where they were supposed to have a master teacher, and I saw some new teachers that had never seen a master teacher. So we have to value the people that are coming in, but they also have to have the type of training that prepares them well.
So this is of great personal interest to me. I spent 2 days at Stanford a couple of weeks ago with many of the leaders in the Finnish education system thinking about this, or talking about this, and me thinking about it. And one of the things that Finland was able to do was they were able to come together around a narrative on education, and that narrative was equity. Right, a consensus belief that equity in education was really important. We don't have a belief in equity in the United States. The belief in equity in the United States is opportunity. We have a lot of beliefs in competing interests, but we don't have a lot of beliefs around equity. To us, equity would be communism. So my question is, in order to see those changes, Barbara, we have to come around a narrative of agreement. And it seems to me that the narrative of personalization is an area where we could maybe get the kind of consensus that Finland got on equity. Kathleen, you've raised your hand.
I'm really glad that you get to speak with them. I'd love to listen to a piece of Sahlberg from Finland. And one of the things, I think you're right, one of the things they all agreed on is that every child in Finland, no matter where they lived, would get a certain level of education, and they do promise that, and they do deliver that. And that's really something that we are, that's not even in our language right now. So that's one of the big concerns. It also is around policy. And, we're a much bigger country, far more diverse, and changing policy is very difficult. But I think that we need to really drive this discussion and this conversation here in this country. Because I think we're really at a crossroads, because we have such a large dropout rate in kids that are highly unmotivated on the most part, and we really need to change all that, and we're perfectly capable of doing that. So I think that we really need to be advocating very, very strongly around this conversation, and to really set a clear vision and agreement around personalization and really providing every kid here in the United States a level of education that every child, no matter where they live, are going to receive, or else there's going to be just lots of inequity going forward.
Lisa, go ahead.
I just wanted to say on that topic that if you can afford it, you have choice to have personalized learning. You have the choice to go to Reggio Emilia, Montessori, or democratic school, or free school, or any of these schools that honor personalized learning or student-led learning. And what I really find disappointing is that our government does not allow those who cannot afford it to be able to attend those type of schools. So my personal goal is to allow everyone to be able to attend the schools that honor personalized learning and personal success, and not just have governments mandate that only those who are rich enough can have that sort of system, and the rest of the people need to be suppressed by this testing regime. So that's my goal, because personalized success plans, personalized learning plan, school-wide enrichment model, and all these wonderful models do exist for people who can afford it, and everyone should be able to have that sort of school environment available to them.
Okay, we have actually reached the end of our hour. Gary says, this is the best, most helpful webinar I have ever attended. Gary, I agree. This has been a terrific evening. Thanks to Barbara, Kathleen, Shannon, and Lisa for a really engaging conversation. I don't think this is the last time we're going to talk about this. Barbara and Kathleen, I sure hope that you'll come on the show when your book is done. There's obviously lots more to talk about. If anybody has any final words, I'll let you raise your hand on the panel, and I really appreciate your being here. I'm clapping for you. And the clapping now is a little bit hidden, but it's under the smiley face with the applause button. So Lisa, go ahead and say your final say, and as you do so, we'll let people look at the schedule coming up, and the recording will have the chat included in it, so if you watch the full Illuminate recording, you can capture the chat. You can also right now go up to File, Save, and you can save the chat. Did you want to say something else, Lisa?
Actually, I had accidentally left my hand up, but I do want to say something else since I have the opportunity. I'll take it. And that is that we did start a group on Facebook called the Student Union, and that is a group to really give students a great voice. And I really hope people will go and check that group out, the Student Union, invite their students, because students are also really important in being advocates for their own personal success. So please do join that group and help our students have a voice in advocating for themselves. Thank you so much for having me and for everyone who came today.
Thanks, Lisa. Barbara, did you want to say something?
Very quickly, Kathleen and I started a personalized learning group in LinkedIn. So anyone who has a LinkedIn account, please join us. You can write us and join us. And also, we're doing some presentations on personalized learning at Q and ISTE. So we have those on our site. So I'll put the link in again to our website that we created. So if people want some more information. So thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Barbara. Really terrific. Kathleen?
Thank you very much, Steve. I really look forward to coming back and having another conversation about this after we hear from all those wonderful people in Finland. There's the phone. Anyway, I want to point out that I do a curating topic on personalized learning on Scoop It, if anyone would like to follow. And so lots of good information there.
But so go ahead and put links in there. Lisa, I don't think you put in a link for the Facebook group. Kathleen, if you've got a link there to the Scoop It, that will you can. I'll leave the chat open and you can put that in there as well. Shannon, you're the only one who hasn't given a final word. Thank you so much for being here. Did you want to say anything else?
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation. Lots to think about now.
Thanks for your terrific work in this area. Okay, I'll leave the chat open for a couple of seconds, then we'll turn the recording off, and in order for that recording to process, we do all have to leave the room, so I'm not pushing you out, but when you're ready, go ahead and click on the X at the top right, or go to File and Exit. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope you'll join us again.